Welcome, everyone, to Hello, Ernest at the Kitchen Table, connecting writers and readers. I am Jan Pratt, the author of several children's picture books and also the author of a series of yoga lesson plans for kids.
And I am GaGa Gabardi. I'm a co-author with Judilee Butler. Together, we write the Phoebe Korneal Mystery Series. Join us for every episode as we connect readers to your next great read.
To Hello, Ernest at the Kitchen Table, connecting writers and readers. And we hope today that with our current author, you find your next best read. So I'm here today with GaGa Gabardi, and she is the author, along with a co-author of a mystery series. Jean, why don't you tell us a little bit about the series and a little bit about this co-author process?
Oh, wow. That's like
That's a long question, so
that's a
divide
lot.
it
That's a
up.
lot. Thank you. Well, yeah, I think with a co-author, it's an amazing process. And I think that after 4 years of writing as a co-author, Judilee Butler is my co-author. She and I have become long distance friends. And I say that because we are co-authors and we are not co-located. At the very start, September of 2019, we were co-located. She lived in this small mountain town where I live, and she spent winters in Florida and then moved to Wyoming, and now she is in Wyoming full time. So we're not co-located. I have seen her one time in the last 3 years, other than on FaceTime, and we we use technology to the max. And I think that's the thing with co-authoring is you really have to have a handle on technology, because you're certainly not going to write a chapter and then mail it off to her and have her work it over and mail it back. So you have to get comfortable very quickly with technology. And every now and then Judy and I are saying things like, how'd that happen? Or what is that? It's always a fun ride when we try to figure out, is it a pilot problem? Or is it an internet problem? Or is it a stupidity problem? We don't really know all the time. So it's always a challenge, but it's fun. It's fun to write with a co-author. I don't know any other way. So that makes it kind of a narrow field of experience.
Do you feel like it's a division of workload, or is it a that you're bouncing ideas off of each other? What do you think are the pros of working with a co-author?
Well, I think really the pros are that you have someone else to bounce it off of, and you have someone else to kind of share the workload. And I think you also have to have a pretty thick skin, because if I write something and Judilee doesn't like it, it's not like Judilee to say, "Oh, that's nice." She would say instead, "That dog don't hunt." And we need to strike through all of that. And of course, I go along with her because it's like having an instant editor. And instead of paying someone to edit or belonging to a critique group, which would be another great way to go for anyone who's getting started, she is constantly critiquing, and likewise, I'm doing the same with her. And so what we're always trying to look at is we're trying to understand what our narrative arc looks like, and very short term. What do you think for right now? Then what do you think is going to happen? And so the way we work is we're looking at chunks of the story. We're not trying to go beginning to end and a 100% narrative arc. Instead, we're chunking it. For right now, this is what we want to be telling the story about. And then for this next piece, this is what we want to start introducing. And we have found that instead of trying to lay down an entire narrative arc, taking notes, and then when we think we've covered that area, then we keep it on the notes at the bottom of what we're writing, but we do a strike through so we know we've already covered that. Be I think, one of the things is that between Judilee and I, we are old, and this is, coming out of retirement, myself coming out of retirement 3 different times, and now I'm writing for Judilee, coming out of retirement and back into writing. And we can't remember. Did we already cover that? We'll be on FaceTime, and I'll say things like, we need to do a find to see if we've used the term condominium or if we've used the term townhouse to describe where she lives. Because for a reader, you don't want to be switching it up. They're thinking, what, did they move from one chapter to the next? Did they move from a condo to a townhouse? No, it's Judilee and I being old and forgetting what we call it. So it's a lot of fun, and could be very frustrating if you don't have a thick skin. So that's what I meant by that. But we really do, kind of share that the weight of the writing and the weight of the story, and always modifying and adding. And so I think it's much easier than writing in a vacuum and then having someone critique it and say, strike that entire chapter. Judy would strike it in a heartbeat.
So we kind of jumped the gun a little bit and went right into the writing process. Tell us a little bit about this series that you have going, because you're on book 3. You've done 3 and you're working on a prequel. Is that correct?
We absolutely are. Yeah, we absolutely are. Thanks for asking about that. We started writing in September of 2019 before COVID hit. And I always like to tell the story. The Chaffee County Writers Exchange would do a we write, and we would gather and have a facilitator with prompts and that kind of thing. And a woman by the name of Robin Hall was facilitating this particular writing session. And she was able to get us into the mining museum up in Leadville, Colorado. So we had a little bit of a tour, and we talked about writing a mystery from the information in that museum. And so Judy and I were sitting next to one another, and we kind of knew one another at that point. And we wrote our little stories, and they were supposed to be short stories. And the Chaffee County Writers Exchange, which has now become the Central Colorado Writers, they put together an anthology from all these short stories. They did the editing. They bought an ISBN number and gave the book as a fundraiser to that mining museum, and it's still up there today. And so that was our first start. And um, so Judy read her short story to the group at the table, and people were very nice, and that was good. And then I read my little short story, and they were very nice. Finally, someone at the table said, "You know what? I think if you two ladies put your 2 short stories together, you might have a short story for the anthology that we're going to be publishing." And so that was the start of it. And Judy took off for France for like a month and a half. I'm like, "Judy, where are you going?" And she had a vacation planned, and so she takes off, and the CC Writers Exchange people helped put it all together, and it got published. Judy returned from France, stepped in, and between a lot of help, and Judy and I, we learned a lot. and our little short story is combined into one, and it is in that book. So that's how we got started. And it was so fun to invent this character called Phoebe Korneal and her good friends around her in a small town that we named Oresville, which is a take on Leadville, Colorado, up the road here. And Leadville is the highest city in all of the US. And so we kind of circle back to John Denver's song Rocky Mountain High. We circle back to Colorado being uh, an early legislator for recreational and medicinal marijuana, which of course is rampant in this state right now, and a big source of tax revenue. So that can't be all bad, but we kind of use that as a little bit of a theme through all three of our mysteries. And they really aren't heavy mysteries; they are light mysteries. I don't think they really have the the cozy mystery camaraderie and interesting characters, light characters. That's really not it. So I think they're more of a light mystery, not a lot of forensics, not a lot of blood and gore, but a mystery. There might be a death, maybe not a death, maybe a woman who's driven off the road in the middle of a snowstorm. Now that's book two. And Phoebe investigates that. Was she really a bad driver or was something else going on here? And so that kind of a mystery. And then book three circles back to a death and some bad stuff coming into this little community of Oresville. So light mysteries. Now the prequel has a bit of a mystery, but it really is the start of Phoebe Cornell's career in law enforcement. And she lives in Salt Lake City, and she has always wanted to be a detective. And she joins the Junior League of Police Training, and within a few years, she is actually in patrol on duty, and she wants to be a detective. And we're going to see how that works. And oh, by the way, she has a boyfriend in the prequel, and uh, and that seems to work pretty well for her until it doesn't. And as a result, she catapults over the mountains and lands in Oresville. And she is a deputy sheriff in Oresville. And there begins books one, two, and three. But the prequel is the backstory of what went on in Salt Lake City, Phoebe. So it's fun. And I think the fun part about it is Judy and I write funny stuff. Not so much fun stuff, but funny stuff, because people do things that are so interesting. And what I always say is, I listen to people tell me stories. I go, you can't make this up. People do the darndest things. And if you just listen to the stories that are being told around you, you have great stuff for writing. And that definitely is what Judy and I use. Someone said you got to be careful with a writer because if they don't like you, they might write a story about you and kill you off. And we're careful to kind of avoid that. But we do listen to the stories around us, and we're very good at retelling those stories into our Phoebe Korneal Mystery Series. So it's fun. Thanks for asking. Aren't you glad you asked?
So I think if I heard correctly, you said you guys have been working together for 4 years and
Right,
you have
right.
3.5 books. So are you
Yes.
cranking out one a year, or did the first one take longer? When's the prequel due out? Tell us about that.
Thank you for asking. Just this week, we finished writing the prequel. We're doing about one book a year. But the prequel, of course, now has to be edited. Now it has to be critiqued. Now we have all of that in front of us. And we have an editor that we've used and hired, of course, and she has been most helpful. And but it's not ready to go to her yet because she does not critique. And what we are doing is using beta readers. So if you're a beta reader or you want to be a beta reader, this is the point in time where the prequel will go out to the beta readers, and then we'll see what they think. And in this case, Judy and I are on a budget, a pretty tight budget. And so what we do is line up friends, not family, but friends, and people we've met along the way who are journalists and literary teachers and things like that. And we copy it, put it out to them, and wait for them to get back to us on what they thought of it or the errors that they found, or was the context wrong, or what's missing here. And so that's what we do. That's our next step. And hopefully in over the next 2 months, between Judy and I, we can be critiquing, rewriting, rearranging, revising at the same time, our beta readers are doing that very thing, and then they'll send it back, and then we're ready to go. And we are strictly self-published. We're never going to make enough money. What I always say is I'm not going to have enough money to buy that Lamborghini I'd really love to have. And Judy says we're never going to have enough money to put food on the table from our books. So you have to really understand this whole marketing thing. And whether you're with a publisher or you're self-published, the marketing is really up to you. It's great to have your book on someone else's website, and they might even help you with some of the editing and cover design, and that's great. But someone has to pay them to operate also. So you have another element that costs. And the goal that Judy and I use on co-authoring is we are looking for about $1,500, and the book will be uploaded to Amazon. And that's really what we try to live with. So that's kind of a tight budget. So we are always looking at spell check in Microsoft to help us. We're always looking at Grammarly. Those things we have, and so we can use those, and it's not going to add to the cost of getting this book out the door. And we also limit how we write. Our first three books are around 65,000 to 70,000 words. We put it in what we call a backpack or pocketbook size. So it's not real expensive to create this fiction book. It's smaller. And the cover we've been doing ourselves. Now we're at kind of a break point. Should we redo our cover? We don't like our covers. They were photos and enhanced. And now we're thinking we wish we had done illustrations. And that really kind of leads me to my next point, and that is if you are a beginning author, if you're starting into that writing journey, you really ought to go to Barnes and Noble or somebody's bookstore, and you really need to be looking around at what is out there. What are other authors doing with the big time publishing companies? What do their covers look like? because to me, the cover is why you pick up the book. The back of the cover is what sells the book. So that little elevator speech on the back of the book is really what sells it. And had I done that, had Judilee and I looked at what's out there to begin with, we never would have done the covers that we're stuck with today. And it's going to cost some money to redo our covers, but we're really thinking about it. So if you're getting started, go to Barnes and Noble. And I hate to give them press, but you can also look up various books on Amazon and go to your local bookstore if you're lucky enough to have a bookstore in your town. Check out the way it looks. That is what sells. And the marketing is up to you, whether you have a publisher or whether you are self-published. So you better tune in to that whole marketing thing, PDQ.
Well, I totally agree with you because I'm a book browser myself, and I may not end up with the first books I pick up, but the first ones I picked up are for the art on the cover. That's what
Yeah,
draws you in
yeah,
for sure. For sure.
yeah, yeah. Now I get it. 4 years ago, I did not get that. I get it now. A hard lesson.
So you guys are both retired and forging ahead in your writing career. Did your interest in becoming an author start before that?
Yeah, I think speaking for myself, yeah, interested, but I came out of college and it was like, I need to get a job and I need to earn some money and I need to work. And having the leisure of space to write and figure it all out, I really didn't have that opportunity. I really could not do that. I had to make a living to support myself. Um, I loved reading. I read constantly through high school, and I really didn't tune into a lot of reading until I hit high school. And my first chapter book that I recall, and now we're going back 50 years here, so things were very different back then. And I read The Good Earth by Pearl S. Buck. And I was like wowed with the descriptions, with the writing, what little I knew about grammar. I was like, I didn't really see any problems with it. I love the history, I love the characters. And that was the beginning for me of the reading journey. And so as I read more and more and I settled on mysteries, as I read, I was always looking for comparisons to the great way Pearl S. Buck wrote. So that kind of sucked me into this whole process of writing, not so much storytelling, but the process of writing. And that stuck with me and kind of festered for 50 years. And then finally, I had the space and the time and Social Security, and I could afford to write. Boom, the rest is history. Then I met Judilee.
So
But very fun. It's been fun.
you mentioned a critique group that you guys belong to. Has that been helpful with the writing process?
I tell you what, the I'm on the board for the local CC Writers group, and it's Central Colorado Writers .org, and we have a critique group twice a month. And I have to admit that Judilee and I have not availed ourselves to that opportunity. But anyone getting started, critique group, and this one specifically, it's done on Zoom. We have members of the organization, excuse me, from all over the US. And it's not unique to Central Colorado or Chaffee County. It is open to everyone. And the critique group has fostered several authors who are now published. So it really is an exciting, worthwhile critique group. And for $20 for a yearly membership, and you automatically can be part of the critique group, best deal in town. And why Judy Lee and I do not use it is who knows why. But it is an excellent, excellent critique group. Yeah, thank you for bringing that up. I appreciate that.
So, themes I'm thinking for your book. Obviously, you said they're light mysteries. Um, are they just for fun? Do you have a deeper agenda in your books?
Well, we really do. And I hate to admit it, but between Judy Lee and myself, we have some pretty strong opinions on what goes on in the world today. And our writing gives us an opportunity to throw in a snide comment here and there about politicians, or a demeaning comment about how men think women drive. We use our writing to sneak in those kind of fun comments, and we both feel good about it. And that really is the series, the Phoebe Korneal series. And of course, I think that for the two of us, we really have been through a lot of the issues as women try to make it in the business world, as women are accepted as authors and leaders, and not just the cook, but the chef, and that kind of background. You know, when I came out of high school, and still when I came out of college, women in Colorado could not get a checking account or bank account without the signature of a man. And it wasn't until 1974, by the way, that a woman's bank was started. And guess what? In the first day, this was in Denver, in the first day, over $1 million was deposited in that women's bank. And when you go through a period of time like that, where women, we had the vote in 1920. So what happened from 1920 until 1974, and you still couldn't get your own checking account? What is that? And so the flavor of our books is really all about strong, very talented, and independent women, and great friends, male and female, great friends, living in a small town at altitude, right? 10,152 feet. And then, of course, take a spin on the Chamber of Commerce in that town, that they want to call it 10-5. So let's get high at 10-5 in Oresville, Colorado. Well, that works better than a motto, let's get high at 10,152. That really doesn't, it's not catchy. So the Chamber of Commerce always working for catchy. And in a small town, that's fun. If you take that same kind of thinking to Denver, Colorado, believe me, the ink will never dry on it, because it'll be rehashed, rewritten so many times, it'll lose all of that flavor. But in a small town, things like that work, and good friends work. And it's not just your job to get it done, but all of us can help. And that is how the stories go in all three books. The spoiler alert for book three is that Phoebe is going to run for sheriff. And the unpublished, unspoken motto is no more old white guys. And we worked very hard to get book three out before the last general election, and we missed it by a month. Dang it. All right, just a quick take on that one.
Well, Jean, do you have a little sample that you would like to read to
Well,
our
yeah,
listeners?
yeah. I could do that. I could do that. And feel free to jump in and cut me off if necessary. Here is book one. And on a lark, we submitted it into a couple of writing contests and we won, not first place, but honorable mentions and third place in another one. But anyway, this is the first book, The Last Hurrah, a Phoebe Korneal mystery. In this book, and as you can see, it's all marked up, and I do enjoy a real fast read. But in this part of it, Phoebe meets a guy who becomes beautiful man in books two and three. But this is where Phoebe meets beautiful man. So let me just share a couple of this. And like I said, interrupt when we're out of time. Phoebe hustled through the front door and rang a buzzer on the wall for attention. She's actually gone to Manitou Springs, Colorado, and she goes into the police station to introduce herself to the local cops. I'm just stopping by. No big deal. I'm not on a mission here. All right, so she goes into the door. Uh, She's thinking it could be no one is around as early morning is prime coffee and donut time. After a few minutes, she heard someone ask, "Hello, what can we do for you?" There was a camera and a speaker in a corner of the ceiling that must have been how they could see her and reply to the buzzer. "Hello," Phoebe hesitated, wondering how loud she needed to speak to be heard and where she could aim her voice. "I'm a visiting officer from Greene County and just stopped in to introduce myself." "Hold right there." The ceiling boomed again, "and someone will be out to meet you." A few minutes passed, and a door off to her side was suddenly jerked open. She turned at the sound. There stood the most beautiful man she had seen in recent memory. Maybe the most beautiful man ever. At that very moment, she choked on who knows what and went into a coughing fit, complete with gagging and spitting. Her eyes started to stream, and her nose suddenly gushed like someone had flushed her sinus cavities. The beautiful man stepped up to her and started pounding on her back while simultaneously pulling out a handkerchief to press against her face. That sent her into panic mode, and the coughing got worse. Suddenly, her snorting went silent as her throat burned and then closed, her eyes bugging out of the head. She could not catch an ounce of air. The beautiful man calmly tapped his shoulder mic and called dispatch for a fire department medic to be sent over. The next few minutes were crazy and loud. In her shock at the chaos, coupled with the throat event leading to shortness of oxygen, her legs, stiff and tight from the long car ride, gave out. Down she went, only to be caught by the beautiful man, the fall looking more like a swoon, maybe even a ladylike swoon. But as she passed out, she was thinking, probably not so much, "Welcome to historic Greenstone, Officer Phoebe." And that is how she meets beautiful man. And I think anyone who's read book one and sometimes book two, their first question is always, "What happens with beautiful man?" I'm like, okay, that's good. But that's it. Thank you for letting me read that. That was fun. I enjoyed it.
Well, Jean, thanks for visiting with us today. Hopefully you guys will check out Jean's information. Where can they find you, Jean? How can they get your book?
Oh, thanks for asking on that one too. We have a website, bngbooks.com. And we also have Phoebe Korneal at gmail.com. And our books are available at several local bookstores here in Chaffee County, Colorado, and Lake County, Colorado, but also, of course, Amazon, good old Amazon.
Well, we'll put all that information in the show notes for you guys in case you missed any of that. So don't worry about that. And
Thank you.
again, Jean, thanks for being here at Hello Ernest at the kitchen table, connecting writers and readers, hoping that you found your next great read. We'll see you guys soon.
Thank you. Thanks for listening to this informal conversation with today's author.
Join us next time as we connect writers and readers around the kitchen table.